Alrighty, good evening, grizzly bears. It has been a while since my last installment. I'm going to turn the volume down just a bit here. That looks like maybe a little too much. How about that? That looks good. Right. It has been a while since my last installment in this series where I am reading the complete works of Emily Dickinson. And actually, I did have a short stream several days ago, which was very scuffed. So I did not keep that VOD. I had a lot of technical difficulties during the recording, so that was just a loss, and I read a few poems in that stream, but we'll just pretend I didn't, and I will read them again. Okay, so the next poem in this collection is called Secrets. The skies can't keep their secret. They tell it to the hills. The hills just tell the orchards, and they the daffodils. A bird by chance that goes that way soft overheard the whole. If I should bribe the little bird, who knows but she would tell. I think I won't, however. It's finer not to know. If summer were an axiom, what sorcery had snow? So keep your secret, Father. I would not, if I could, know what the sapphire fellows do in your new-fashioned world. I think my volume was still just a little on the high side there, so let's see, is that a little better? I think so. That was Secrets by Emily Dickinson. Next up we have an untitled poem. Who robbed the woods, the trusting woods? The unsuspecting trees brought out their burrs and mosses, his fantasy to please. He scanned their trinkets, curious. He grasped, he bore away. What will the solemn hemlock, what will the fir tree say? The next poem is called Two Voyagers. Two butterflies went out at noon and waltzed above a stream, then stepped straight through the firmament and rested on a beam. and then together bore away upon a shining sea, though never yet in any port their coming mentioned be. If spoken by the distant bird, if met in ether sea, by frigate or by merchantman, report was not to me. Hello there, welcome to my stream, Talentless Blonde. I'm very happy to see you here. That did not work. There we go. Hope you're doing okay this evening. It must be quite late for you, almost midnight. I'm reading the complete works of Emily Dickinson. I think this is my 5th stream, and I'm about halfway through. She wrote a lot of poems, as it turns out. The next poem is called By the Sea. I started early, took my dog, and visited the sea. The mermaids in the basement came out to look at me, and frigates in the upper floor extended hempen hands, presuming me to be a mouse aground upon the sands. But no man moved me till the tide went past my simple shoe, and past my apron and my belt, and past my bodice too, and made as he would eat me up as wholly as a dew upon a dandelion sleeve, and then I started too. And he followed close behind. I felt his silver heel upon my ankle, then my shoes would overflow with pearl. Until we met the solid town, no man he seemed to know, and bowing with a mighty look at me, the sea withdrew. The next poem is Old-Fashioned. Arcturus is his other name. I'd rather call him Star. It's so unkind of science to go and interfere. I pull a flower from the woods, a monster with a glass, computes the stamens in a breath, and has her in a class. Whereas I took the butterfly aforetime in my hat, he sits erect in cabinets the clover bells forgot. What once was heaven is zenith now, where I propose to go, when time's brief masquerade was done, is mapped and charted too. What if the poles should frisk about and stand upon their heads? I hope I'm ready for the worst, whatever prank betides. Perhaps the kingdom of heaven's changed. I hope the children there won't be new-fashioned when I come, and laugh at me and stare. I hope the Father in the skies will lift his little girl, old-fashioned, naughty, everything, over the stile of pearl. The next poem is called A Tempest. An awful tempest mashed the air. The clouds were gaunt and few, a black as of a spectre's cloak hid heaven and earth from view. The creatures chuckled on the roofs and whistled in the air, and shook their fists and gnashed their teeth, and swung their frenzied hair. The morning lit, the birds arose, the monster's faded eyes turned slowly to his native coast, and peace was paradise. The next poem is called The Sea. An everywhere of silver, with ropes of sand to keep it from effacing the track called land. That was it. That's a very short one. That's almost a haiku. Next up is In the Garden. A bird came down the walk he did not know I saw. He bit an angleworm in halves and ate the fellow raw. And then he drank a dew from a convenient grass, then hopped sideways to the wall to let a beetle pass. He glanced with rapid eyes that hurried all abroad. They looked like frightened beads, I thought. He stirred his velvet head. Like one in danger, cautious, I offered him a crumb. And he unrolled his feathers and rowed him softer home than oars divide the ocean, too silver for a seam, or butterflies off banks of noon leap splashless as they swim. Next is The Snake. A narrow fellow in the grass occasionally rides. You may have met him, did you not? His notice sudden is. The grass divides as with a comb, a spotted shaft is seen, and then it closes at your feet and opens further on. He likes a boggy acre, a floor too cool for corn. Yet, when a child and barefoot, I more than once at morn have passed, I thought, a whiplash, unbraiding in the sun. When stooping to secure it, it wrinkled and was gone. Several of nature's people I know, and they know me. I feel for them a transport of cordiality, but never met this fellow attended or alone, without a tighter breathing and zero at the bone. The mushroom. The mushroom is the elf of plants. At evening it is not. At morning, in a truffled hut, it stops upon a spot, as if it tarried always, and yet its whole career is shorter than a snake's delay, and fleeter than a tear. 'Tis vegetation's juggler, the germ of alibi, doth like a bubble antedate, and like a bubble high. I feel as if the grass were pleased to have it intermit, the surreptitious scion of summer's circumspect. Had nature any outcast face, could she a sun contemn? Had nature an Iscariot, that mushroom eateth him. Next up is the storm. There came a wind like a bugle. It quivered through the grass, and a green chill upon the heat so ominous did pass. We barred the windows and the doors, as from an emerald ghost, the doom's electric moccasin that very instant passed. On a strange mob of panting trees and fences fled away, and rivers where the houses ran, the living looked that day. The bell within the steeple wild, the flying tidings whirled. How much can come and much can go, and yet abide the world. Next up is the spider. A spider sewed at night, without a light, upon an arc of white. If rough it was of dame or shroud of gnome, himself in form. Of immortality his strategy was physiognomy. That poem in particular confuses me. I'm confused by probably most of her poems, but I feel like most of them I kind of get them. But this one's just strange. The next poem is untitled. I know a place where summer strives with such a practiced frost. She each year leads her daisies back, recording briefly, lost. But when the south wind stirs the pools and struggles in the lanes, her heart misgives her for her vow, and she pours soft refrains into the lap of adamant and spices and the dew that stiffens quietly to quartz upon her amber shoe. The one that could repeat the summer day were greater than itself, though he, minutest of mankind, might be. And who could reproduce the sun at period of going down, the lingering and the stain, I mean, when Orient has been outgrown and Occident becomes unknown, his name remain. The next poem is called The Wind's Visit. The wind tapped like a tired man, and like a host come in, I boldly answered, entered then my residence within. A rapid, footless guest to offer whom a chair were as impossible as hand a sofa to the air. No bone had he to bind him, his speech was like the push of numerous hummingbirds at once from a superior bush. His countenance a billow, his fingers, if he passed, let go a music as of tunes, blown tremulous in glass. He visited, still flitting, then like a timid man, again he tapped, 'twas flurriedly, and I became alone. The next poem is untitled. Nature rarer uses yellow than another hue, saves she all of that for sunsets, prodigal of blue. Spending scarlet like a woman, yellow she affords only scantly and selectly, like a lover's words. Next is gossip. The leaves, like women, interchange sagacious confidence, somewhat of nods and somewhat of portentous inference. The parties in both cases enjoining secrecy, inviolable compact to notoriety. I feel like I read that one quite badly. That's okay, I didn't really like it, so. Moving on. Simplicity. How happy is the little stone that rambles in the road alone and doesn't care about careers and exigencies never fears, whose coat of elemental brown a passing universe put on, and independent as the sun associates her glows alone, fulfilling absolute decree in casual simplicity. That one's kind of cute. I like it. And here is another poem called Storm. I guess that other one was called The Storm. And earlier we had The Tempest. And now we just have Storm. It sounded as if the streets were running, and then the streets stood still. Eclipse was all we could see at the window, and awe was all we could feel. By and by the boldest stole out of his covert to see if time was there. Nature was in her barrel apron, mixing fresher air. The rat. The rat is the concisest tenant. He pays no rent, repudiates the obligation, on schemes intent, balking our wit to sound or circumvent. Hate cannot harm a foe so reticent. Neither decree prohibits him, lawful as equilibrium. The next poem is untitled. Frequently the woods are pink, frequently are brown. Frequently the hills undress behind my native town. Oft a head is crested, I was wont to see, and as oft a cranny where it used to be. And the earth, they tell me, on its axis turned, wonderful rotation, by but 12 performed. The next one is another storm poem. She apparently was quite concerned with storms. This one is called A Thunderstorm. The wind begun to rock the grass with threatening tunes and low. He flung a menace at the earth, a menace at the sky. The leaves unhooked themselves from trees and started all abroad. The dust did scoop itself like hands and throw away the road. The wagons quickened on the streets, the thunder hurried slow. The lightning showed a yellow beak, and then a livid claw. The birds put up the bars to nests, the cattle fled to barns. There came one drop of giant rain, and then, as if the hands that held the dams had parted hold, the waters wrecked the sky, but overlooked my father's house, just quartering a tree. That was a very surprising ending to that poem. Next up we have With Flowers. South winds jostle them, bumblebees come, hover, hesitate, drink, and are gone. Butterflies pause on their passage cashmere, I, softly plucking, present them here. Sunset. Where ships of purple gently toss on seas of daffodil, fantastic sailors mingle, and then the wharf is still. The next couple of poems are untitled. She sweeps with many-colored brooms and leaves the shreds behind. O housewife in the evening west, come back and dust the pond. You dropped a purple raveling in, you dropped an amber thread, and now you've littered all the east with duds of emerald. And still she plies her spotted brooms, and still the aprons fly, till brooms fade softly into stars, and then I come away. Like mighty footlights burned the red at bases of the trees, the far theatricals of day exhibiting to these. 'Twas universe that did applaud, while chiefest of the crowd, enabled by his royal dress, myself distinguished God. The next poem is called Problems. Bring me the sunset in a cup, reckon the morning's flagons up, and say how many do. Tell me how far the morning leaps, tell me what time the weaver sleeps, who spun the breadths of blue. Write me how many notes there be in the new robin's ecstasy among astonished boughs, how many trips the tortoise makes, how many cups the bee partakes, the debauchee of dews. Also who laid the rainbow's piers, also who leads the docile spheres by withes of supple blue, whose fingers string the stalactite, who counts the wampum of the night, to see that none is due, who built this little Alban house, and shut the windows down so close my spirit cannot see. Who will let me out some gala day with implements to fly away, passing pomposity? The next poem is called The Juggler of the Day. Blazing in gold and quenching in purple, leaping like leopards to the sky, then at the feet of the old horizon, laying her spotted face to die. Stooping as low as the otter's window, touching the roof and tinting the barn, kissing her bonnet to the meadow, and the juggler of day is gone. My cricket. Farther in summer than the birds, pathetic from the grass, a minor nation celebrates its unobtrusive mass. No ordinance is seen, so gradual the grace, a pensive custom it becomes, enlarging loneliness. Antiquest felt at noon when August, burning low, calls forth this spectral canticle, repose to typify. Remit as yet no grace, no furrow on the glow, yet a druidic difference enhances nature now. I can't say I loved that one. I didn't really like the sound of it. Possibly a skill issue, though. The next couple of poems are untitled. As imperceptibly as grief, the summer lapsed away, too imperceptible at last to seem like perfidy. A quietness distilled as twilight long begun, or nature spending with herself sequestered afternoon. The dusk drew earlier in, the morning foreign shone, a courteous yet harrowing grace, as guest who would be gone. And thus without a wing or service of a keel, our summer made her light escape into the beautiful. It can't be summer, that got through. It's early yet for spring. There's that long town of white to cross before the blackbirds sing. It can't be dying, it's too rouge. The dead shall go in white. So sunset shuts my question down with clasps of chrysolite. The next poem is called Summer's Obsequies. The gentian weaves her fringes, the maple's loom is red. My departing blossoms obviate parade. A brief but patient illness, an hour to prepare, and one below this morning is where the angels are. It was a short procession. The bobolink was there. An aged bee addressed us, and then we knelt in prayer. We trust that she was willing. We ask that we may be. Summer, sister seraph, let us go with thee. In the name of the bee, and of the butterfly, and of the breeze. Amen. The next poem is called Fringed Gentian. God made a little gentian. It tried to be a rose and failed, and all the summer laughed. But just before the snows, there came a purple creature that ravished all the hill, and summer hid her forehead, and mockery was still. The frosts were her condition. The Tyrian would not come until the north evoked it. Creator, shall I bloom? Next up is November. Besides the autumn poets sing, a few prosaic days, a little this side of the snow, and that side of the haze. A few incisive mornings, a few ascetic eyes. Gone Mr. Bryant's goldenrod and Mr. Thompson's sheaves. Still is the bustle in the brook, sealed are the spicy valves. Mesmeric fingers softly touch the eyes of many elves. Perhaps a squirrel may remain, my sentiments to share. Grant me, O Lord, a sunny mind, thy windy will to bear. The snow. It sifts from leaden sieves. It powders all the wood. It fills with alabaster wool the wrinkles of the road. It makes an even face of mountain and of plain. Unbroken forehead from the east unto the east again. It reaches to the fence, it wraps it rail by rail, till it is lost in fleeces. It flings a crystal veil on stump and stack and stem, the summer's empty room. Acres of seams where harvests were, recordless but for them. It ruffles wrists of posts as ankles of a queen, then stills its artisans like ghosts, denying they have been. The blue jay. No brigadier throughout the year so civic as the jay, a neighbor and a warrior too, with shrill felicity, pursuing winds that censure us a February day. The brother of the universe was never blown away. The snow and he are intimate. I've often seen them play, when heaven looked upon us all with such severity. I felt apology were due to an insulted sky, whose pompous frown was nutriment to their temerity. The pillow of this daring head is pungent evergreens, his larder terse and militant, unknown refreshing things. His character a tonic, his future a dispute, unfair an immortality that leaves this neighbor out. Okay, that was the end of a very long section out of the complete works of Emily Dickinson. That was the nature section. Hello, sucking Tom Cruise's toes. I have seen you around in many streams. You have one of those names that's quite regrettably very difficult to forget. Welcome to the Grizzly Bears. Thank you for the follow. To anyone just joining, we are slowly making our way through the complete works of Emily Dickinson. We're just over halfway through, it looks like. I think this is my 5th stream in the series. The previous VODs are all on YouTube. And this one will be added to that playlist sometime in the next few days. Okay, so the next section here has the heading Time and Eternity. Very heavy theme, I expect. Most of these poems will be dark and depressing, unlike the nature poems. But here we go. Let's have some depression. The first several poems are all untitled. I'll just read them straight through. Excuse me, I'm going to hydrate before I start here. Alrighty. Let down the bars, O death. The tired flocks come in, whose bleeding ceases to repeat, whose wandering is done. Thine is the stillest night, thine the securest fold. Too near thou art for seeking thee, too tender to be told. Going to heaven, I don't know when, pray do not ask me how. Indeed, I'm too astonished to think of answering you. Going to heaven, how dim it sounds. And yet, it will be done, as sure as flocks go home at night unto the shepherd's arm. Perhaps you're going too, who knows? If you should get there first, save just a little place for me, close to the two I lost. The smallest robe will fit me, and just a bit of crown. For you know we do not mind our dress when we are going home. I'm glad I don't believe it, for it would stop my breath, and I'd like to look a little more at such a curious earth. I'm glad they did believe it, whom I have never found since the mighty autumn afternoon I left them in the ground. That was a weighty one, wasn't it? As I expected, for a section of poems called Time and Eternity. At least to pray is left. O Jesus in the air, I know not which thy chamber is. I'm knocking everywhere. Thou stirrest earthquake in the south, and maelstrom in the sea. Say, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, hast thou no arm for me? I can't actually tell, reading her poems, what her religious beliefs are. Her poems often touch on religious subjects, but she's certainly not traditionally religious. The next poem is called Epitaph. Step lightly on this narrow spot. The broadest land that grows is not so ample as the breast these emerald seams enclose. Step lofty, for this name is told, as far as cannon dwell, or flag subsist, or fame export her deathless syllable. The next several poems, it looks like 4, are untitled, so I'll just go through them in order. Morns like these we parted, noons like these she rose, fluttering first, then firmer, to her fair repose. Never did she lisp it, and 'twas not for me. She was mute from transport, I from agony, till the evening nearing one the shutters drew, quick a sharper rustling, and this linnet flew. Good evening, Mr. Panini. Welcome to the Risley Bears. And hello there, Blondie. I'm glad you're still with me. And I'm glad that everybody is apparently enjoying these poems. For those who have recently joined, we are reading the complete works of Emily Dickinson. A death blow is a life blow to some who till they died did not alive become, who had they lived had died, but when they died, vitality begun. Well, that one's a bit of a riddle, isn't it? I read my sentence steadily, reviewed it with my eyes, to see that I made no mistake in its extremest clause, the date and manner of the shame, and then the pious form, that God have mercy on the soul. The jury voted him. I made my soul familiar with her extremity, that at last it should not be a novel agony. But she and death acquainted meet tranquilly as friends, salute and pass without a hint, and there the matter ends. I have not told my garden yet, lest that should conquer me. I have not quite the strength now to break it to the bee. I will not name it in the street, for shops would stare that I, so shy, so very ignorant, should have the face to die. The hillsides must not know it, where I have rambled so, nor tell the loving forests the day that I shall go, nor lisp it at the table, nor heedless, by the way, hint that within the riddle one will walk today. The battlefield. They dropped like flakes. They dropped like stars, like petals from a rose, when suddenly across the June a wind with fingers goes. They perished in the seamless grass. No eye could find the place, but God on his repeal-less list can summon every face. This is a rather depressing series of poems, isn't it? The next several, again, are untitled. The only ghost I ever saw was dressed in Mechlin, so he wore no sandal on his foot, and stepped like flakes of snow. His gait was soundless like the bird, but rapid like the roe. His fashions quaint, mosaic, or haply mistletoe. His conversation seldom, his laughter like the breeze that dies away in dimples among the pensive trees. Our interview was transient, of me himself was shy, and God forbid I look behind since that appalling day. Some, too fragile for winter winds, the thoughtful grave encloses, tenderly tucking them in from frost before their feet are cold. Never the treasures in her nest the cautious grave exposes, building where schoolboy dare not look, and sportsman is not bold. This covert have all the children, early aged and often cold, sparrows unnoticed by the father, lambs for whom time had not a fold. As by the dead we love to sit, become so wondrous dear, as for the lost we grapple, though all the rest are here. In broken mathematics we estimate our prize, vast in its fading ratio to our penurious eyes. Next up, in case you were worried the poems might be turning happy, we have a poem called Memorials. So don't worry, it's going to stay depressing. Death sets a thing significant the eye had hurried by, except a perished creature entreat us tenderly to ponder little workmanships in crayon or in wool. With this was last her fingers did, industrious until the thimble weighed too heavy, the stitches stopped themselves, and then 'twas put among the dust upon the closet shelves. A book I have, a friend gave, whose pencil here and there had notched the place that pleased him, at rest his fingers are. Now when I read not, for interrupting tears obliterate the etchings, too costly for repairs. Next up, again, several untitled poems. I went to heaven. 'Twas a small town, lit with a ruby, lathed with down, stiller than the fields at the full dew, beautiful as pictures no man drew. People like the moth of Mechlin frames, duties of gossamer and eider names. Almost contented I could be 'mong such unique society. Their height in heaven comforts not, their glory naught to me. 'Twas best imperfect as it was, I'm finite, I can't see. The house of supposition, the glimmering frontier that skirts the acres of perhaps, that shows me insecure. The wealth I had contented me, if 'twas a meaner size, then I had counted it until it pleased my narrow eyes. Better than larger values, however true their show, this timid life of evidence keeps pleading, I don't know. There is a shame of nobleness confronting sudden pelf, a finer shame of ecstasy convicted of itself, a best disgrace a brave man feels, acknowledged of the brave. One more ye blessed to be told, but this involves the grave. The next poem is called Triumph. Maybe this one will be uplifting. What do we think? Triumph may be of several kinds. There's triumph in the room when that old imperator death by faith is overcome. There's triumph of the finer mind when truth affronted long advances calm to her supreme, her God, her only throng. A triumph when temptation's bribe is slowly handed back, one eye upon the heaven renounced, and one upon the rack. Severer triumph by himself, experienced who can pass acquitted from that naked bar, Jehovah's countenance. Pompless, no life can pass away the lowliest career, to the same pageant wends its way as that exalted here. How cordial is the mystery, the hospitable pall of this way beckons spaciously, a miracle for all. I noticed people disappeared when but a little child. Suppose they visited remote or settled regions wild. Now know I they both visited and settled regions wild, but did because they died, a fact withheld the little child. I kind of like that one. The next poem is called Following. I had no cause to be awake. My best was gone to sleep, and morn a new politeness took, and failed to wake them up, but called the others clear and passed their curtains by. Sweet morning, when I oversleep, knock, recollect for me. I looked at sunrise once, and then I looked at them, and wishfulness in me arose for circumstance the same. 'Twas such an ample peace, it could not hold a sigh. 'Twas Sabbath with the bells divorced, 'twas sunset all the day. So choosing but a gown and taking but a prayer, the only raiment I should need, I struggled and was there. If anybody's friend be dead, its sharpest of the theme, the thinking how they walked alive at such and such a time. Their costume of a Sunday, some manner of the hair, a prank nobody knew but them, lost in the sepulchre. How warm they were on such a day. You almost feel the date. So short way off it seems, and now they're centuries from that. How pleased they were at what you said. You try to touch the smile and dip your fingers in the frost. When was it, can you tell? You asked the company to tea, acquaintance just a few, and chatted close with this grand thing that don't remember you. Past bows and invitations, past interview and vow, past what ourselves can estimate, that makes the quick of woe. Next up is the journey. Our journey had advanced. Our feet were almost come to that odd fork in being's road, eternity by term. Our pace took sudden awe, our feet reluctant led. Before were cities, but between the forest of the dead. Retreat was out of hope, behind a sealed route. Eternity's white flag before, and God at every gate. I'm not sure how much more of this I can take. It's all quite depressing. A country burial. Ample, make this bed. Make this bed with awe. In it, wait till judgment break, excellent and fair. Be its mattress straight, be its pillow round. Let no sunrise yellow noise interrupt this ground. Going. On such a night, or such a night, would anybody care if such a little figure slipped quiet from its chair? So quiet, oh how quiet, that nobody might know, but that the little figure rocked softer to and fro. On such a dawn, or such a dawn, would anybody sigh that such a little figure too sound asleep did lie? For Chanticleer to wake it, or stirring house below, or giddy bird in orchard, or early task to do. There was a little figure plump for every little knoll, busy needles and spools of thread, and trudging feet from school. Playmates and holidays and nuts, and visions vast and small. Strange that the feet, so precious charged, should reach so small a goal. Essential oils are wrung. The attar from the rose is not expressed by suns alone. It is the gift of screws. The general rose decays, but this in lady's drawer makes summer when the lady lies in ceaseless rosemary. I lived on dread to those who know the stimulus there is. In danger other impetus is numb and vitalless. As 'twere a spur upon the soul, a fear will urge it where to go without the spectre's aid were challenging despair. I'm glad you like it. I think it's kind of an unusual trigger here on Twitch ASMR because you can't do this with a 3DO mic. It's one of the things I really like about these mics. But they can't do the 3D IO triggers. Actually, I don't have very many triggers at all. Mostly I just rub the mics and read poetry. I do have some brushes. The brushes scare me a little because it's like one false move and I blast your eardrums. Let's see, which one did I just read? Okay. Next up is another untitled poem. If I should die, and you should live, and time should gurgle on, and morn should beam, and noon should burn, as it has usual done, if birds should build as early, and bees as bustling go, one might depart at option from enterprise below. 'Tis sweet to know that stocks will stand when we with daisies lie, that commerce will continue, and trades as briskly fly. It makes the parting tranquil, and keeps the soul serene, that gentlemen so sprightly conduct the pleasing scene. Next up is a poem called At Length. Her final summer was it, and yet we guessed it not. If tenderer industriousness pervaded her, we thought a further force of life developed from within, when death lit all the shortness up and made the hurry plain. We wondered at our blindness when nothing was to see but her Carrera guidepost at our stupidity. When duller than our dullness, the busy darling lay. So busy was she finishing, so leisurely were we. Ghosts. One need not be a chamber to be haunted. One need not be a house. The brain has corridors surpassing material place. Far safer of a midnight meeting external ghost than an interior confronting that wider host. Far safer through an abbey gallop, the stones a chase, than moonless one's own self encounter in lonesome place. Ourself, behind ourself concealed, should startle most. Assassin hid in our apartment, be horror's least. The prudent carries a revolver. He bolts the door, o'erlooking a superior spectre more near. I like that one a lot, actually. That one's very clever. Next up we have Vanished. She died. This was the way she died. And when her breath was done, took up her simple wardrobe and started for the sun. Her little figure at the gate the angels must have spied, since I could never find her upon the mortal side. Precedence. Wait till the majesty of death invests so mean a brow. Almost a powdered footman might dare to touch it now. Wait till in everlasting robes this democrat is dressed, then prate about preferment and station and the rest. Around this quiet courtier obsequious angels wait. Full royal is his retinue, full purple is his state. A lord might dare to lift the hat to such a modest clay, since that my lord, the Lord of lords, receives unblushingly. Gone. Went up a year this evening. I recollect it well. Amid no bells nor bravos the bystanders will tell. Cheerful as to the village, tranquil as to repose, chastened as to the chapel, this humble tourist rose. Did not talk of returning, alluded to no time. When were the gales propitious, we might look for him. Was grateful for the roses in life's diverse bouquet, talked softly of new species to pick another day. Beguiling thus the wonder, the wondrous nearer drew. Hands bustled at the moorings. The crowd respectful grew. Ascended from our vision to countenances new. A difference, a daisy, is all the rest I knew. I'm going to take a brief break to hydrate and clear my throat before the next poem. Alrighty. Next up is Requiem. Taken from men this morning, carried by men today, met by the gods with banners who marshaled her away. One little maid from playmates, one little mind from school. There must be guests in Eden, and all the rooms are full. Far as the east from even, dim as the border star, courtiers quaint in kingdoms, our departed are. What inn is this, when for the night peculiar traveler comes? Who is the landlord? Where are the maids? Behold what curious rooms. No ruddy fires on the hearth, no brimming tankards flow. Neuromancer, landlord, who are these below? It was not death, for I stood up, and all the dead lie down. It was not night, for all the bells put out their tongues for noon. It was not frost, for on my flesh I felt siroccos crawl, nor fire, for just my marble feet could keep a chancel cool. And yet it tasted like them all, the figures I have seen, set orderly for burial, reminded me of mine. As if my life were shaven and fitted to a frame, and could not breathe without a key, and 'twas like midnight some, when everything that ticked has stopped, and space stares all around, or grisly frosts, first autumn morns, repeal the beating ground, but most like chaos, stopless, cool, without a chance or spar or even a report of land to justify despair. The next poem is called Till the End. I should not dare to leave my friend, because if he should die while I was gone, and I too late should reach the heart that wanted me, if I should disappoint the eyes that hunted so to see, and could not bear to shut until they noticed me, if I should stab the patient faith, so sure I'd come, it listening, went to sleep, telling my tardy name. My heart would wish it broke before, since breaking then were useless as next morning's sun, where midnight frosts had lain. That one might be the most depressing of the bunch, and that's saying something because this has been a very depressing bunch of poems. Next up is a poem called Void, which doesn't promise to be very much less depressing with a name like that. Let's see. Great streets of silence led away to neighborhoods of pause. Here was no notice, no dissent, no universe, no laws. By clocks 'twas morning, and for night the bells at distance called. But epic had no basis here, for period exhaled. The next poem is untitled. A throw upon the features, a hurry in the breath, an ecstasy of parting denominated death, an anguish at the mention, which, when to patience grown, I've known permission given to rejoin its own. The next poem is called Saved. Of tribulation, these are they, denoted by the white. The spangled gowns a lesser rank of victors designate. All these did conquer, but the ones who overcame most times wear nothing commoner than snow, no ornament but palms. Surrender is a sort unknown on this superior soil. Defeat, an outgrown anguish, remembered as the mile. Our panting ankle barely gained when night devoured the road. But we stood whispering in the house, and all we said was saved. I think just how my shape will rise when I shall be forgiven, till hair and eyes and timid head are out of sight in heaven. I think just how my lips will weigh with shapeless, quivering prayer that you so late consider me the sparrow of your care. I mind me that of anguish sent, some drifts were moved away before my simple bosom broke. And why not this, if they? And so, until delirious born, I con that thing forgiven, till with long fright and longer trust I drop my heart unshriven. Next is The Forgotten Grave. After 100 years, nobody knows the place. Agony that enacted there, motionless as peace. Weeds triumphant ranged. Strangers strolled and spelled at the lone orthography of the elder dead. Winds of summer fields recollect the way, instinct picking up the key, dropped by memory. Okay, one more poem left in this section. A very short one, and it is untitled. Lay this laurel on the one too intrinsic for renown. Laurel, veil your deathless tree. Him you chasten, that is he. Okay. That was the end of the second series of Emily Dickinson poems. There are 3 series in total, so we are 2/3 of the way through our unrelenting quest to read the complete works of Emily Dickinson. I think I'm on my 4th stream in this quest now, so that suggests I've got about 2 more streams to go to get through the 3rd and final series. So, in addition to being the end of the 2nd series, that was also the end of a very depressing section of poems on the theme of time and eternity. Almost every poem in there was about death, it seemed. Some of those were quite dark. So hopefully we will get back to some happier poems. I'm not sure how much time I have left tonight. This might be a good place to stop. If anybody's out there in chat who isn't asleep, you have an opportunity to vote, I guess, on whether you'd like me to continue tonight or wrap up there. I will, anyway, read the introductory poem from the 3rd series that's in the preface. It's very short. It's all I have to bring today, this and my heart beside, this and my heart, and all the fields and all the meadows wide. Be sure you count, should I forget. Someone the sum could tell. This and my heart, and all the bees, which in the clover dwell. All right. I think I'll wrap up there. My voice is feeling like it could use a break. I know some people seem to stream for hours and hours, but I really can't make it past 2 hours before my voice calls it quits. So I'll just wrap up with some gentle triggers in case any of you are falling asleep. Hello, Baka Valentine. Welcome to the Grizzly Bears. I saw you followed me a while back And someone gave me a shout out, I think. So I didn't have the opportunity to welcome you or thank you for the follow at that time. Most of my streams are poetry reading streams. I am working my way very slowly through the complete works of Emily Dickinson. I'm posting the VODs on YouTube if you're interested. And for tonight, my voice is about done, so I'm just wrapping up stream. Streamlabs bot has helpfully put a link there in chat to a previous series I did, The Complete Works of Sarah Teasdale. I have to say I like Sarah Teasdale much more than I like Emily Dickinson. I really enjoyed doing that series. But Emily Dickinson is pretty good too. It's just a little bit harder to understand many of her poems. A lot of them are very mysterious. Oh, thank you very much. As you can see from my subscriber count, both here and on Twitch, I'm just getting started. And I might stay in the just getting started mode for quite some time, possibly forever. Alrighty, I think I'll end it there. Thank you all very much for joining my stream, or if you're watching this VOD later on YouTube, I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you carry this feeling of peace and calm with you through the rest of your day or evening or night, whatever time it is for you.